Senator Heitkamp.
Thank you, Senator Coates, and thank you to the chairwoman and the ranking member for holding this important hearing. I think Secretary Fox is probably sick of hearing from me at this point. We've spent a lot more time on this issue than anyone ever anticipated that we would, and it is so critical that we get this right, because no matter how many pipelines we build, we're still going to move crude on the rails. There isn't going to be a pipeline that goes to Washington State or one that goes to New Brunswick. We're still going to be moving this, and I think one of the things that we've really been encouraging is a collaboration and a cooperation. I want to just take off from the three various categories that we've been talking about, because there's been a lot of committees that have been talking about this issue, from Commerce to Appropriations to Homeland Security, now a broader expansion of the rails. So in prevention, I have kind of a list of things. We've got positive train control that's being held up by the FCC's inability to give the go-ahead. That's been a big problem, right, Secretary? So I hope that you are encouraging and pushing everyone that you can to make that happen, and to talk about the real important consequences of not getting positive train control in a timely fashion. The second issue is technology, real-time data about what's happening on the rails. You're absolutely right. We have to know when we have a track problem so that we can prevent it. We know that there's some technologies that can be deployed. The industry thinks they have some technologies. We need to amp that up with the Federal Railroad Administration. The third thing, and this is really one of my questions, is greater inspections, more resources for inspections of those track lines and prevention. Now, very many states have now begun that discussion of ramping up their inspectors. Want to know what you're doing to coordinate with state DOTs and state inspectors to make sure that those inspections are actually value added, that you're consistent in terms of what you're looking at, and how you can use those state resources to expand on the federal inspections.
You know, it's a great question, Senator, and one of the programs the FRA has implemented is one that actually works with states to train their inspectors. And so when we see trends and safety concerns on a national level, we have a very direct way to impact the way that we can leverage our own inspection resources by training state inspectors to do the same types of evaluation that federal inspectors would do. The program has been very successful, and I know that we've recently signed on I think a new state that's going to be coming on board soon that you know about.
Yeah. One of the kind of follow-ups there is the importance. I think before there used to be some grant funding to the states, and if we can take a look at whether that's something that should be reinstated, we should in fact get more rail inspectors out there. Obviously, equipment, testing equipment and getting equipment on a schedule, you know, one of the, without putting anyone on the spot here, one of the causes of, we believe, of the derailment was a broken axle on one of the trains, which wasn't the train that was carrying the oil, but carrying grain. Now let's talk a little bit about mitigation. We've got tank cars, which I think have been covered. I share both the ranking member and the chairwoman's frustration in not getting a date certain. And I understand your frustration in not getting data on what in fact is the chemical makeup of Bakken crude and how that changes over a time. And I applaud your methods, and I know that API has been working to try and get more data to you, and if we're having problems with communication there, we need to fix those problems. And we cannot let a new design of tank cars be delayed by you know, a struggle about getting data back and forth. So we need to understand that, but I will tell you, you know, you say you've heard from 3, we've heard it's 4. But those 4 might, in fact, represent 50% of the production. So we've got to be a little careful when we say 4, because there may be some minor producers out there who are not, you know, and we don't know what percentage of those 4. I think 1 definitely moves almost all their product on the rails. Some of these would also find pipelines. And so, again, I would really reiterate the need for you to communicate with anyone that you can to get this data as soon as possible and make sure that testing gets done.
We're communicating every day.
Okay.
And even among the 3 or 4 there are variations in what is being provided to us. We, by the way, are very grateful to those shippers that are cooperating and providing the information that they have provided. But I can assure you that as this rulemaking process goes along, we're not stopping for anybody. We're moving through. But if we don't want there to be a situation where folks have slow-stepped us on providing data on the front end, a rule is developed, and then the complaint is that we didn't see the data, we didn't understand exactly what we were shooting at once a rule is actually established. Our desire is to have a ready... Yeah.
Mr. Secretary, I'd be less concerned about that if I actually asked for it ahead of time and didn't get it provided. And so I think you have a pretty good response if you say, well, this data would have been useful before we promulgated the rule. If you're asking for that data now, I think it's critically important. And I know that they're paying close attention to statements that happen on the Hill, and hopefully this will once again encourage folks to be cooperative. This is a fact we can know. We can know what's in those tank cars. We may have a different judgment on what happens as a result of that knowledge, but we can know what's in those tank cars.
Agreed. We will move this rule with absolute speed, but we want to make sure that we're hitting the right safety standard.
And I don't...
And that's exactly what we're doing. So I just want to make it very clear that any perceived delay with this rule is not the product of my saying, let's slow this down. This is an agency that is data-based, that is trying to do the very best in trying to level set a safety standard for tank cars.
And I've run out of time, but I want to, I'm not going to be able to stay here because I've got to chair the floor, but I want to thank the fire chief for your excellent work and for what you do every day to keep the citizens of your community and obviously some of our neighbors to the north safe. Thank you, and we're working on getting you better information, better equipment, better training so that you can meet the challenges of your community. Thank you, to the chair and to the ranking member for letting me participate.
Thank you.